Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a GeekVerse review. I am... I don't know.
Lacking inspiration.
Yeah.
I'm the wood creaking rhythmically Dylan Mass.
Very, very nice. You probably would not guess by these nicknames. So, trying some out a little bit different here before we had reviewed Netflix movies in negative lights, Netflix and fail.
Yes.
Today we're doing original, and I said that, maybe in the future we'll try and do some more, but then it's movies like Apostle that make me go, I don't know if it's worth it, because we talked about there's not many people that review Netflix movies, and there's times where I'm interested to watch them, and I'd be like, in this one, Gareth Evans, who directed the Raid and Raid 2, which are known these big foreign action films, and I don't think he's done much else, but those were pretty high as far as like in the film community, got a lot of praise and whatnot.
Sure.
So things like Daredevil and whatnot have taken that type of action style. But this film, Dylan, you wanna describe your experience with this film? I'm gonna tell you, folks, probably not gonna be a long review. And I think, do we need to do spoilers? I think we'll do a spoiler section at the end because I think there's one thing in particular I want to complain about. Yeah. So we'll let you know when we get into spoilers. But this is our non-spoilers thoughts on Apostle.
Yeah.
Dan Stevens.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? Netflix, a lot of originals, a lot of content that they have. Not all of it's good, right? They pump out a lot of stuff, and sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. And I don't think they care if it doesn't, right? Because they just have so much that I don't know where they get all this money from. I guess all the people subscribing, but anyway. So Apostle, this is I don't know. We saw the trailer, watched it last week, and I was like, okay,
that's
potential
exciting.
Yeah. I only watched half the trailer. I was like, okay, I don't want to get I don't want to watch too much. I think I'll check this out. But I don't know what to say. I feel like this is just a very bland movie. I didn't like any characters in this movie. I didn't really find any of them particularly interesting. None of their stories really stood out to me.
There's too much going on in this movie. There's four. It seems simple, but there's 4 different plot lines.
You realize that when a character will come back and you're like, oh, I haven't seen them in 40 minutes, because this movie, it's 2 hours. It
feels like 2 hours.
It's a clean 2 hours.
Yeah.
But okay, so to throw out some pauses, I thought there was a couple good kind of horror moments.
Mm-hmm.
There was some good shots and kind of creepy stuff. There was some kind of cringy Saw sort of torture stuff.
Yeah, if you like torture porn, it's for you.
That I liked. I thought it was pretty effective.
Yeah.
Some of the music I quite enjoyed as well. It was kind of off-putting or unsettling, I should say. Not off-putting, but yeah, unsettling and kind of different than I'm used to in horror movies. It's similar, but it has its own a unique twist to it.
Mm-hmm. You were getting some Get Out vibes.
There's some Get Out vibes in there for sure. Some interesting percussion. I wasn't really driving with the main villain.
This is not his best work. I'm a Dan Stevens lover. I think he might be on the man
villain.
crush.
I said villain.
Oh, I thought you. Wow.
What do you think I said?
I think you said. I don't know what I thought you said.
Dan Stevens, I guess I've seen him Beauty and the Beast. I guess that's all.
Yeah,
and he's
you've
really,
seen him. Yeah.
Not in a whole lot. Spoiler for Beauty and the Beast. I just thought he was doing way too much with his face. Way too much.
He's going to cage style.
He was going to cage style. Yeah, that's exactly it.
At the end, there's one point in the scene, in the movie. There's the Mammoth Ledge for the video. He was trying to make an emotional scene. I'm a big Dan Stevens fan. Legion, one of my favorite shows on
Dan
TV.
Stevens apologist over here.
Yeah, I am, but there was one point where he was doing a scene trying to be emotional, and his eyes were crossed, and it was taking me out of it. He was just
oh yeah.
I won't say lines, but he was and then the eyes got crossed, and it was just it did take me out of it. And I'm somebody that loves him, but I can't support him there.
Yeah.
And villain's what you were saying.
I didn't care for the villain.
No.
He was the definition of one-dimensional, so I didn't really find much to grasp onto.
He's almost tacked on to the villain. Like, he's the main villain, but it doesn't really happen till, like, I'd say, till we get to, like, the third act, where he's, like, the official villain, and it's like, okay, it happens.
It's almost like this, like, movie, like, they're just like, okay, we're gonna write it and film it at the same time. So they start it, and then they're like,
ooh, this idea.
Yeah, they got like 40 minutes to like an hour worth of content in, and they're like, shit, we don't have a villain yet. Let's just string this guy over, give him this crazy scene that like probably doesn't make sense, and I don't think it was really justified. Not to spoil
like
it.
the big, like his kind of big
his turn, you could say, where it's like, okay, this guy's the villain now.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of main. I guess it's sort of like a supernatural sort of thing. It didn't really. That was kind of responsible for some of the horror elements, sure, but it wasn't really a villain within the movie.
No, and I feel like it was really underutilized.
It was an interesting idea, right? But they didn't.
Yeah.
They went into it barely.
Yeah.
So that's too bad.
That'll be, once again, critic reviews apostle. That's too bad.
Yeah. How did you feel?
You want me to take a ball? So yeah, I was liking the beginning of it.
Yeah,
I felt
I was too.
It was a lot of intrigue set up. There's like, where are we going, this and that, and then like I said, we'll get into it more in spoilers. But I'd say there's about. I'll say this in the least spoiler way. So, and this is the synopsis of the movie. It's a dance team's playing a guy whose sister's been missing. He knows it's linked to this island, and maybe there's some shadowy things going on.
Shadowy.
I screwed up the word shady twice on the Titans review this morning. I can't say shady anymore. I don't know what's happening.
Did you say shadowy?
I said multiple versions. Check it out. So the thing is that and she's kidnapped and there's something going on this island. Maybe it's a cult. That's what the trailer lets you know. Synopsis let you know. So that's kind of the preference. If you have no idea what this movie is, it's on Netflix. Go. Well, here's my recommendation. Don't check this out. You don't need to. Even if you're a big fan of like the Saw kind of horror stuff. There's moments of that in here, but there's not a pluffer of them like a Saw movie. And there is moments where there's Gareth Evans like action moments, because there's a few action scenes that are brutal. There's one point where a guy just gets stabbed like in synchronicity with 4 separate knives like at the same time.
Big old spears. It's pretty intense.
There's action scenes that are really cool, but my problem was that I didn't feel that fit the vibe. Like he shoots action very stylized. And I feel very well, but I feel like there's just times when the characters would break into fighting. It was like, I didn't feel like this character could fight like this or stuff like that. Like, there's kind of a weak, younger character in this, and then at one point he gets really mad and he has a knife and he's just going ham. Like, he's just like a karate master at times. Like, I'm being hyperbolic, but it just felt like the action scenes, because he's known for that, felt like he kind of put them in there. So the action scenes by themselves are good, but not in the story. But the thing is, to not spoil it, you have like the main guy's mission of he wants to get his sister back. You have this village which is kind of shadowy people. You have a big religion aspect theme of, kind of just is God.
Yeah, it was very fanatical.
Yeah, and it's kind of just asking kind of the age old, like, is God a real thing? Should we trust in God? What did he ever do for us? And then there's a supernatural element. And there's 4 of those things, and they all get a lot of time and very little time at the same point, where these ideas are on screen.
There's also some side characters and side stories.
Oh yeah,
and kind of like a video game movie, if you will.
That's exactly what it feels like, and that's the thing where it's like all those 4 issues are in the entire movie, but they're touched upon so little, and that's why the actual idea of like the supernatural element of the movie I really liked, and I thought, okay, this could be something really cool, and I feel like so little's done with it. Even they set up the supernatural stuff. There's some really good like pure horror, like kind of scary moments in there. So the first half of the movie is good, but it's all because it's good setup and you're hoping it's going to pay off. And then it just feels like, kind of what Dylan says, like the ending is just in shambles. They didn't know what to do. The villain I liked the villain as far as from an acting standpoint, because I felt like he played like a big piece of shit, and I really got that from him, and I wanted to see him get his comeuppance. But Dylan has a point where like they drop one line to kind of make you see like what his point of view was, and that's about it. And there's a few other characters that like in relationships that I think could have like really been strengthened by lines and scenes together. There's certain big moments that happen between a character, and then nothing's ever talked about that moment again. They just kind of go on throughout the day, and I don't know, it's kind of a weird town, so you think you'd talk about, there's lots of stuff going on, but they just kind of ignore stuff. And it's not even ignore stuff like a Get Out or something like that, where it's like, oh, people are ignoring it for a reason. It's just there's lots of struggle going on in this movie, and there's lots of townspeople. You never get an idea if the townspeople are for or against, like the
Yeah,
like,
they're pretty nameless.
yeah, like for our main character or the villain, like at times they're going along with the villain, and then at times they're helping the main character out. So it's just whatever the plot needs them to do, they do it.
Yeah, they lack an identity, and so do like really all the characters. Like even your main character doesn't really have a personality in this movie. There's nothing.
No, he just has to get his sister.
Yeah, there's nothing I could think to describe him as. Other than, like he does crazy faces.
He's a little offbeat because he's like recovering from his own trauma, right? So I'd say he's like a little wild, but he doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't.
You could also, I don't know. You could attribute that to him just like doing drugs or whatever. He's eating poison, whatever he's up to.
Which is never really explained.
It's kind of it. Well, it's more like you can imply.
Alluded to.
Yeah. But it's not. Yeah, you're right. It's not truly. I don't know. I guess maybe it sort of is. Oh, well, maybe we'll talk about that in the spoilers.
Yeah, I'll wrap my final thoughts here in the non-spoilers. Yeah, I really like the score. There was a few times where I thought it really emphasized the scene well. There's a lot of good shots. There's one scene where a certain character is being dragged and they're like tied up, and it starts with the camera's completely upside down and it's following this character. And as it's falling, it's completely turning around. And I can't remember. There's one scene that I don't want to give away for non-spoilers, but it's a scene that makes it very claustrophobic, and I thought that was shot very well because it was a scary scene already, the idea of it, but then the way they shot was even better. And I think that's my biggest thing is and I don't think the acting. It's not one of these where like acting's really bad. I think it's all right. I think it's just because the material's just not really there. And if anyone, like I think there's some good acting going on, but I don't think it's. I think it's just kind of all right. What Dylan said, it's kind of bland. Like no one's being great here, but there's no one that's like offensively bad. I think Dan Stevens made some choices in that movie that didn't work out for him. But it's just I guess for me it's just a disappointment because from the trailer, from the directors, from Dan Stevens, and then even from the first half, maybe not first half, maybe first 45 minutes, first act at least, I thought was really good setup, and I thought there was potential here to be like a really cool movie and something that I'd love to talk about. Especially it's a good, even for Halloween, be like, oh, this could be a fun Halloween movie in a few years to watch, but it's a movie that I know I will never watch again.
Yeah, definitely.
I would never recommend. And I'm a big Dan Stevens fan. Like I'd recommend if you have to watch everything in his filmography, then fine. But that's when you know it's not a good movie. If you're just like a completeness and you want to see, I've done a Fassbender. I've watched stuff that Jonah Hex, not a great movie, but it's like, oh, I want to see all those movies. That's the only reason I'd recommend it. If you're a big fan of this director, big fan of the actor, and you want to see all the stuff they've done, then sure. But this is easily skippable, and this is the thing where it's just like it sucks for Netflix because they still have not really had that huge movie yet. Like the movies seem to come out.
They've more been the TV game, eh? Yeah.
They gotta fix that. So now we'll get into spoilers. So 3, 2, 1. If you don't want to be spoiled, tune out now. But really, I think you should let yourself be spoiled and just save yourself the misery of watching. And maybe if you hear this, it's the same thing as Dylan was describing the movie to me earlier. I had no intention of watching. I'm gonna watch it now just to see my opinion. So maybe listen to our spoilers and be like, is it that bad or what did they really do with it? I want to start with, like I said, I want to start with the actual idea of the supernatural thing. I like the idea of, okay, so they're on this island. It's a very small community. They're very, we talked about this when we're watching maybe behind the times. They're not.
Yeah.
So they're not that well off, but they have this queen, some whatever witch god or something like that that's like buried in the ground. And if you feed it blood from an animal, from a person, it'll grow and like
nourish the land.
Yeah, nourish the land.
And the people of the town don't know about this. They
only a select 3.
They're praying to like a god, and this is their god. Maybe they probably don't know that there's like a physical being to it. But then there's 3 people. I guess the 3 pioneers of this land that probably came here and found it. Or found her and decided to kind of build around this. That's kind of like the general like supernatural setup of it, and it's an interesting idea because the struggle is that they're running out of food. They're running out of like livestock and crops, or I guess mostly just livestock to feed this supernatural being.
Because we see there's a birth of a lamb and it's dead pretty much after birth, and it's gonna be no good for her.
Pretty good scene, like it's pretty gritty.
I should have said that in the non-spoilers. Very brutal movie. They do not pull punches in many things, whether it's that or whether it's
blood and guts.
Poor Jeremy, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Poor Jeremy.
But Yeah, and I liked the idea, and I thought we were gonna get more into that, but it feels like that is such a side thing, and it's like to me, actually the biggest thing of the film, and it's like I feel like it's just kind of it's not literally just mentioned, but it feels like that, and it feels like the whole movie should be building up towards what we're gonna do with this, and more about them maybe having the choice of giving actual people to her. I don't know, like I liked that idea once he finds those encryptions on the wall. I thought, okay, this is gonna be really fun to see. Is Dan Stevens' character gonna tell the village to help turn them against them? I don't know, but like nothing's that much done with it. We kind of learn about it. We see her used creepily through a few times, which we're going to talk about, and then they burn her, and that's about it. Mm-hmm. Like not much is done with it.
Yeah, and it really it's a cool idea because Dan Stevens' character throughout this movie is kind of like eating poison or something, and it's kind of messing with his mind. It makes him like kind of freak out a little bit, but it's clearly his vice, and it's interesting because you kind of, I guess it's fun, you find out, or like kind of implied that the like poison that he's taking is like I guess the essence or the power of the supernatural being, and they form a connection that way. So when he first meets her, when he's crawling around, she like, you know, puts her hands on his face and is like, "Oh, I've been waiting for you," and that's kind of the end of that part of it. But like the thing is, it's like you were saying earlier, like it was set up pretty well as like a mystery element through the first like act of the movie, where I was pretty curious to find out what it was, and it was cool. But then they just kind of forgot about it. And I think that maybe that's my problem with the main villain, is because I feel like him going off doing his crazy shit is kind of where the movie decided to go instead of maybe into that supernatural stuff. And maybe that's just because they ran out of ideas. Yeah. Maybe they had like a cool nibble of an idea, but didn't know how to turn it into a full meal.
Because what happens with the supernatural tree lady, and then what happens with was Quinn the villain? Yeah, Quinn was the villain. Yeah. What happens with him? Those feel like completely different movies. You either have the supernatural movie where it's the shady village, like, you know, doing some, you know, sacrificing animals and people, stuff like that, or then it's a movie about there's a power struggle between two leaders going on, and one has risen it too far. And they kind of tried to make the mesh in the middle, and that's where I think the biggest con for me is that it feels like two completely different movies trying to be one, and like you said, maybe it's just they couldn't flesh that idea out good enough, and if that's the case, then you don't do that idea. Like, it's cool, maybe you had a great idea of, oh, I have this way that, you know, I have an idea about this tree lady and the blood, and it's going to be... I think that has to be the main focus of the movie, because then the villain thing, and like we
can it kind of does feel like that was initially, or at least like what they wanted to prioritize somewhat, because I mean the very end of the movie, the last scene is Dan Stevens' character is like, he's like bleeding out, his blood is seeping into the ground around him, and then he kind of sinks into the ground, and the vines, the twigs, the sticks kind of grow onto his face, kind of, you know, saying that this is a cycle that
he's taking her place.
Potentially occurs. Yeah, now he's the man of the island.
Because if people are following along that didn't watch the movie, eventually Dan Stevens burns down this forest thing, and it's not even that big of a deal, because he's just kind of there and he just throws it, and it doesn't feel like a big payoff, because we learned about this thing, and there's not that much. And I guess before we move on from her, I want to mention two things. One, there is one really good scene where Dan Stevens is trying to hide from the village people, and he has to hide in a sewer system, and she pops up. One, it's a gross scene, but two, it's scary, and the way it's shot is very claustrophobic. Like, they make you feel like when Dan Stevens is moving, like, it is very narrow where these two are. So when this lady pops up, you're thinking, man, this is not good for Dan Stevens.
And we had been kind of teased at that 2 other times earlier in the movie, where there's like a creepy old lady in a veil, one outside of a church and then another one at the end of the hallway. So you kind of know that like something's coming at some point. And this is like, he's trying to run away from 2 guys who are trying to kill him. This is his last option, and then that's like not a safe option either. So it was set up really well, and it was like
it was a good scene.
It was a good scene. It was well made. It was cringy. It was gross. It was all of those bundled into one.
And that's what's up, because
that's when his facial expressions are on point, you know, because him going crazy is like, that's like the pinnacle of the human condition.
Well, that's what was so disappointing, because that scene was so good. I'm like, man, and that was probably still got like another hour 15 left after that.
I was hoping there'd be more horror elements, right? That stuff was pretty good.
Yeah, and I was like, well, if that's what we're starting off with we must be getting even better stuff down the line.
Must be.
And that's even then too. Decided kind of went back and forth between like being really creepy to like the torture porn sort of aspect. And the other thing I want to mention is with her, she had like some gimp helper. He had like I don't know if
he had a hornet's nest on his head.
Yeah, was it a hornet's nest?
No,
it
looked like
it was something like that. It was bandages, pretty much just like the top head, the mummy. He was lots of fun. I like characters like that in those sort of movies. So I like that he's literally just there to like
feed
her.
Is it beast?
Yeah, it's some sort of Netflix subtitles deemed it a creature. So
yeah, so whatever creature is.
Yeah, so I like that. I thought that was fun. I like a little side character there. And then with Quinn, so what his deal is, he's part of the Three Pioneers, and he seems a little shady the whole movie, like a little more kind of testosterone running through his body or whatnot. But at one moment, him and Michael Sheen, he plays Malcolm. They have an argument about it's not even a big argument, just a discussion about how they should be leading this island and stuff like that. And you can tell there's some sort of miscommunication there, that they both feel different ways of leading. But the problem is with Quinn is that conversation is the only conversation we get, and then he ends up killing his own daughter, which we'll talk about quickly, and then he turns that into executing her boyfriend, and he turns that into power struggle. The problem was you only get that one line, and that conversation had to me feels like the beginning of we're gonna get more of this down the line. Mm-hmm. That's all we got, and then he uses this big kind of
Malcolm really disappears for. He's in the movie a lot at the start, but then he's he completely disappears the last 40
for the minutes. Most vital parts. He's gone, and and then I can agree with you because I was enjoying the film.
Like, why didn't Malcolm just die? Why didn't he just get killed earlier? Because what is the point? Nothing. He comes back at the end. He says like, "Hey" to Dan Stevens, and then he gets sunk into the earth, whatever. And there's no reason for Malcolm to be there.
Sequels.
I don't know why. Oh God, no! Please, I'm not watching the sequel.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, they should have just killed him. That could have been some sort of emotional tie, considering his daughter is one of the people that makes it away. One of the known characters that makes it away from the island. So.
But yeah, you brought that up. Quinn didn't have much of. Like I said, I feel like that was a completely different movie. Bruce, because I liked what they were doing with his daughter Fionn. Is like they've set up early that. So when Dan Stevens gets the island, he befriends this like younger guy named Jeremy, and it's alluded to, and then you see a scene of he's in love with this girl Fionn, and they make love and everything like that.
Wood creaking rhythmically.
They make love in a weird way as well too, because she's like, I want to do this. He's like, you sure? And she just jumps on him, but like they're fully clothed. It was a very strange. And scene.
Also that the way that scene was going. Made me feel like that was the first time they'd had sex. Yep. But then she's like, oh, many moons.
Yeah, because the next scene we see her and she's so worried that she's pregnant. So it was very strange pacing.
Kind of weird.
But then, so she is pregnant. She's talking to Andrea, who's Malcolm's daughter. You don't really need to know her if you haven't seen this movie because it's
yeah, there's some lineage that doesn't really... And all of it's like very shallow. It's just like, there's a guy who has a daughter. It's like there's never any mention of a wife or anything at all.
But the thing is, so I was liking that, like, I could see where it's going. Like, okay, her dad's kind of the loose cannon, gonna find out she's pregnant. And I didn't mind the whole, he freaks out, he murders her, and then does the whole, the boyfriend actually murdered her. I was kind of liking that because that's fun. But then when it turned into the power struggle of him taking over, and I was fine him being a manipulative character, but then when he was trying to be the king, I was like, this is too much at a time. Yeah, the Jeremy Duff scene is very brutal, just a crank right to the head, like...
Yeah, it is quite literally something I saw.
Yeah. But I liked, once again, same thing, I liked the setup of it, it was just the execution I didn't like, and I liked the actor.
The execution of the scene, not the execution of Jeremy's.
Yeah, the execution of Jeremy was great. It was gross sounding, but yeah, the execution of the actual storyline did not work for me.
Yeah, you're right, it's just... Because until we see that switch of Fionn and so him and his daughter, like that's really like the first twist. Mm-hmm. And then it's that he kills her and then he blames it on Jeremy and then he kills Jeremy and he takes over. And that all happens within like 5-10 minutes.
5 minutes like that.
Which is like for the rest of this movie things happen pretty slow. Like we said, it is 2 hours, so that and that's even like in that scene where he kills his daughter is like split into like 3 scenes. There's like other little things in between, and it still happens very, very fast. So he's you can't really. He's not like a real character at that point. He's not believable, right?
No.
He's just way over the top.
And it's just too much at once. It's just too much
It's way
stuff
too
going
much.
on. Because then it's like, did he always? Because he says that line to Jeremy.
It's not like a noticeable progression. It's just he's this character. There's 5 minutes here, and he's a completely different guy afterwards.
And then he said to Jeremy, like, I've won this, so, like, was the whole time, was he kind of planning on killing his daughter and her, like, didn't...
He always had, I don't know, it is kind of weird, too, because it's, like, they're playing this sort of thing at the beginning where you don't know if, he's, like, heading on to, the Dan Stevens, maybe he was eyeing up his daughter,
yeah,
or if he, like, because if by I've wanted this for a while means I've wanted to kill Jeremy for a while, then that doesn't really make sense with that thing at the beginning, but maybe we were just looking into that too much. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Oh shit, what was I gonna say? I did tell you that baby was gonna die. The second she said she was pregnant, I'm like, this is just the type of movie this is. And in old age horror movies, babies just they don't make it out, you know.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Do you have anything else to add on this?
I think the one character that I kind of liked was I can't remember her name. Malcolm's daughter. What was her name?
Andrea.
Yeah, I kind of liked her because she was like the one sane person. She seemed like she was kind of bringing other characters together.
She's trying to help.
She didn't have a whole lot of a story, but
she didn't even have
I thought she had she was probably the best acting wise out of this cast. So I thought she was kind of cool, but there wasn't really a whole lot. I think the sister character Jennifer was very disappointing. Like if Dan Stevens didn't have any personality in his character, then what did she have? Because she was like at 10 layers below him.
Well,
she had like no substance at all.
But we didn't get any scenes for her to have any substance.
There's a couple, right? There's that scene with her and Andrea, and like the initial one where she gives her some food. Yeah. It's pretty basic. I guess after that we don't really get much, but I feel like maybe we should have because
I think flashbacks would have been needed there to show her and Dan Stevens in a happier time. He was talking her up a lot. Like he honestly talked her up like they were talking of this god of the island. Like he loved her. Just the way
he thought she was fantastic.
Yeah. I think I think flashbacks would have been good to show them in a happier time, being together, and you could see, okay, this is what Dan Stevens has lost. You know, this is what he was like before he was huffing poison. Yeah, tough go around. Yeah. Anything else?
Let me see.
Is this Golden Geeks 2019 Worst Movie of the Year worthy?
I think it's definitely a nominee.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah, not the winner, not the
It's definitely a nominee for sure. I don't off the top of my head, it wouldn't be my worst movie of the year. I watched the worst movie this week, which I'll talk about on the next newscast possibly, because I'm kind of... Oh, actually, I want you to see and I'm not going to say the name. You gotta wait. You gotta watch the next newscast. I want Travis to watch it first, and then we can talk about it.
I will definitely... I think I'll try to watch it if we do an impromptu newscast.
Because this movie actually... Sunday. It did remind me in a few ways of that movie, and I'll bring that up when we talk about that.
And movie. A few times of Bad Times at the El Royale. If you've seen that movie, there's a few just in
a sharp decline from a movie we watched yesterday.
About characters and
amazing characters.
Yeah.
Opposites.
I'm gonna give this. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 10. The 4 is just. I like the score. I thought there was some good acting of parts, the brutality, and I liked the setup. The first half of the movie was maybe less than the first half, but still I liked a lot of the setup, and I was really intrigued. It was going really well, and I thought, we got a good movie here on our hands, and then it falls apart really fast, quickly. So if you've listened this far, if you really want to see it, maybe you do want for those brutal scenes, or just to make sense of what we're talking about.
One more of those brutal scenes I wanted to mention was when the kind of weird gimp dude has Dan Stevens on another crank wheel sort of thing. And he's bringing him in, and his hand is just going into this spike chamber, and a bunch of his fingers get cut off. It was and you can hear the crunches of it, and it gives you the jeebies. So
and I was
effective scene.
The way they set up, I thought for sure he was gonna get saved. It wasn't happening because it was just shot classic movie.
That always happens for the main character of a movie like this, right?
But then it didn't matter because he died, right? So it's not like he has to live his life without his hand. It's
but still, I think they went there a little bit.
They definitely did. I was caught off guard. It was brutal. It was a good scene, but in the long run,
they only left him the ability to do finger guns, I think.
Controversial finger guns.
Controversial. Yeah, I mean, you've heard it all here. I don't think you need to see this movie. Maybe there's some brave soul who loves this movie. Maybe they'll make a compilation on YouTube of like the Saw scenes or something.
Best scenes.
And if that's the case, watch that because there are some cool scenes in here. And I don't really think they need the prior setup to be interesting. So I don't know. Maybe watch that, but definitely. There's a lot of Netflix has a lot of other content, so you should probably go watch.
Just wait and watch Daredevil next week.
Yeah, watch Daredevil with us next week, and let us know what you think of that.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for tuning in. I did not plug at the beginning, but I'll plug it in November 3rd, our 24-hour stream. Make sure you mark that on your calendar, not only to watch, but come donate. Anything helps, $1, $5, $10, doesn't matter. All goes towards BC Children's Hospital, so that would be a great help. And if you can't donate, please like or share the link on that day so we can get it out to people that can donate.
Join us in the chat, say hello, we'll talk.
Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun. We got lots of reviews this weekend, so just subscribe. Thank you very much for tuning in. When you hear from us next, it will not be boring.
Ooh, the little switch up, I like that.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
What was the switch up?
Normally you just say,
like subscribe.
Join us next week, we won't be boring.
Well, I know that they're going to hear from us in like 2 days.
Yeah.
Because First Man.
So that was the little switch up. You just worded it differently. I like